Shalom, Boker Tov, Rabbi Eric Solomon in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's Wednesday, April 29th. Little word this morning on Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. Being celebrated, obviously, it's now in the afternoon in Israel, but we're feeling a little taste of it here. I want to share a little morning Torah in honor of Israel's Independence Day and a story that touched my heart. I remember when I've been in Israel different times in my life, studied different times. And I remember one time when I was studying in Israel at a egalitarian yeshiva called Pardes in Jerusalem. And one of those ways only happens in Israel. I found myself invited to the president's house. At that time, Ezra Weitzman, alav shalom, was the president of Israel at that time. It's a ceremonial position, different than the prime minister, for those that don't know. And it was a celebration of Ethiopian Jewry. It was some kind of particular date. I didn't even realize it must have celebrated one of the Operations Moses or Solomon, and there was going to be a celebration at the Prime Minister's residence, and I was invited. So I got into with other students somehow. So I got onto a bus, and with all the Ethiopian Jewish community leadership, there were students, there were kids who were going to sing in a choir. It was wonderful. I'm sitting next to a girl on the bus next to me, Ethiopian Israeli, who must have been 11 or 12 years old, maybe 10. And I just started to try to schmooze with her. My Hebrew, was okay, certainly passable, and I wanted to practice and get to know her. And I'm talking to her, and I'm asking her questions about her life. She was, stunningly adorable and sweet, and just excited for this moment. And I asked her, tell me a little bit about, where you live, where you're from. Somehow it came to her story, and she told me that she doesn't remember exactly when she made Aliyah to Israel because she was a baby. I said, okay, tell me more about that. And she said, well, according to the story I was told by my mother, is that my mother carried me, I was on her back, and she carried me as she walked through the desert for some number of miles to get to the airport in Addis Ababa to then fly to Israel. And I'm sitting there looking at her, this adorable, sweet Israeli girl, and realizing, she literally came, on eagle's wings. She was carried by her mother, literally walked to Israel, in a sense. It was like seeing a movie in real life. To her, it wasn't, she knew it was special, but, she's a kid. It was just like, this is what it is. For me, I was, nearly in tears. And the idea I want to just put out there about the many remarkable things about Yom Ha'atzmaut, about Israeli independence. One of them is the quote that I brought here at Ben Gurion, that in Israel, to believe in miracles, to be a realist, you have to believe in miracles. The idea that the ingathering of the Jewish people, those particularly who are in difficult straits and challenge, that there's a place of safety, a place of security, a place of sovereignty, a place where Jewish values are lived out in the public sphere, but a place where no Jew, in a sense, will ever be left behind, was lived through this girl and through the Ethiopian Jewish community, among other Jewish communities in diaspora. It was unbelievable to see it live and speak with her as if it was normal. Those kind of experiences, on Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day, with all the challenges Israel faces, with all of her, like any state, far from perfect. Just like in the United States, we're far from perfect. But today is a day to celebrate her gifts, her blessings, her dreams. And I want to say, particularly during this COVID crisis, Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence, of the many messages we learned from Israel, one of them is that in a moment of crisis, the idea of Zionism rose in a time of history. Obviously, the ideas of returning to Israel are thousands of years old, but the modern movement came about looking at the world and saying there's no place for the Jew. There's no place for us to be. We are not welcome. This is before the Holocaust, obviously. And saying there should be a place for us. There should be a place for our people. There should be a place where we, instead of letting history happen to us, we are going to be making history. We're going to take control of our own destiny. And when you look at this decision that the mother of this young girl made, when the world was crazy in Ethiopia, from the history, and saying, instead of letting life happen to us, we're going to do something about it. We're going to leave where we are and actually make aliyah. We're going to go forward. Where those original founders, the chalutzim, the pioneers in the state of Israel, said, instead of letting us feel like we don't fit in here in the diaspora, we're going to do something about it. We're not going to sit back. We're actually going to and react. We're going to be proactive and do something to make a difference in our lives and to change history. That is one of the most profound messages of the state of Israel and of Zionism. And I think of that right now in terms of this crisis. Right now, many of us legitimately are in a responsive mode. We are just responding to a crisis. We're trying to learn how to deal with this quote-unquote new normal. But the real visionaries are the ones who look at the situation and say, at what point are we going to stop letting this happen to us? And we're going to do something to change our destiny, to realize this is challenging, but not to live in response to it, but to do something about it. It's the same decision that Yochanan ben Zakkai, rabbi 2,000 years ago, when he saw Jerusalem sadly being destroyed by the Romans, he said, we're not going to sit back, even though there are plenty of members of our people that said, fight the Romans this way, or don't do anything, or avoid the problem. Yochanan ben Zakkai said, give me Yavna, give me a small area in the land of Israel, and let me try to rebuild Judaism anew in this new context. So too, that's been our response. That's been the successful Jewish response for millennia, is that when crises occur, after surveying the situation, not sitting back and just taking it, but a willingness to try to be creative, adaptive. So lastly, I remember, for those who were able to hear Yossi Netta Cohen just yesterday, amazing interview, members of our congregation who now live in Israel. Yossi said, the amazing thing about Israel or Israelis today is that survival is served for breakfast, served for lunch, served for dinner. And survival on the table is painful, it's scary, but it forces ingenuity, innovation, and creativity. That is what Israel, of the many things, is about. So we celebrate Israel today on 72. May she continue to prosper and flourish. May she continue to model for us what it means to be creative, innovative, to use ingenuity with limited resources to find ways to succeed and thrive, to be a place where the Jewish community and Jews take hold of history and try to make a difference as opposed to responding to it. Something we all can learn, not just Jews, but the world. At the same time, may she continue to seek out the highest Jewish values, peace, justice. May she continue to push towards those highest dreams. She has done so much in the state of Israel. There's still so much more to do. May it happen, God willing, in this year and the year to come. Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach, Boker Tov. We all enjoy and appreciate this day, the gifts of the state of Israel. Shalom.